When you hear the word lysine, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For most of us, it's probably cold sores, right? But what if that's just the tip of the iceberg? What if this one simple amino acid could be linked to something as huge as reversing heart disease or even helping with anxiety and boosting your immune system? Well, today we're going to unpack all of that. So here's our game plan. We'll start with the basics, what L-lysine even is, then we'll get into that really cool heart health hypothesis. After that, we'll look at what it does for your immune system and even your stress levels. And to wrap it all up, we'll talk practical stuff, dosages, and some key things you really need to know. All right, first things first, let's get down to brass tacks. What in the world is L-lysine? Okay, the big word to remember here is essential. And essential basically means your body is like, nope, can't make this myself. You absolutely have to get it from the food you eat. Think of it as one of the fundamental Lego blocks for building proteins. You find it in things like meat, fish, eggs, and even soy. All right, let's just bust a quick myth right out of the gate. You might see lysine supplements pushed for weight loss. The thing is, the science just doesn't back that up at all. Some studies even hint it might do the opposite. But where the evidence is absolutely solid, cold sores. It's a real powerhouse there because it messes with the herpes virus's ability to make copies of itself. Okay, so we've covered the basics. Now, this is where things get really fascinating. We're about to dive into a pretty bold theory about heart health, and it comes from none other than a 2-time Nobel Prize winner, Linus Pauling. So Pauling's idea goes something like this. Imagine the inside of your artery gets a tiny little crack or injury. The body's natural response is to patch it up, and one of the first responders is this super sticky particle called lipoprotein A. We'll just call it LPA. The problem is it's so sticky that it grabs on, and that's the first step that kicks off this whole cascade of plaque building up. So you're probably wondering, okay, where does lysine come in? Well, the theory is that lysine acts like a bodyguard. It swoops in and attaches itself to that sticky LPA. And by doing that, it basically prevents the LPA from sticking to the artery wall. It's kind of like putting the fuzzy cover on a piece of Velcro. It just can't attach anymore. But here's the thing, lysine isn't a solo act in this theory. It's got a partner in crime, vitamin C. So while lysine is playing defense, running interference on that sticky stuff, vitamin C is the offense. It's the repair crew that comes in to fix the original damage to the artery wall. You've got protection and repair. It's a real 1-2 punch. And this isn't just a theory on paper. There's a case study from Pauling that's just wow. It's about a patient who was really struggling with angina, that awful chest pain. After taking high doses of both lysine and vitamin C, this guy was able to walk for miles and do yard work again, things he couldn't do before. He actually said the effect borders on the miraculous. Pretty powerful stuff. And it's not just stories, there are numbers too. In one case, someone who was following this exact protocol, taking about 3 grams a day of both lysine and vitamin C, reported that their LPA, that's that sticky particle we talked about, dropped by a whopping 48% in just 6 months. That's a huge drop. And while we're on the topic of heart health, there's another interesting finding. A study showed lysine could help lower high blood pressure. But, and this is a really important but, this only seemed to work for people who weren't getting enough lysine in their diet in the first place. So it's not a magic bullet for everyone, but it points to how important getting enough of it is. Okay, so we've talked about heart health. Let's switch gears a bit and look at another big area, your immune system. Because it turns out lysine's role is way bigger than just dealing with the cold sore virus. And here we see that teamwork idea again. This time, lysine partners up with another amino acid called arginine. And together, they seem to really give our immune system a boost. We're talking about helping our white blood cells mature properly, getting them to the scene of an infection faster, and even increasing the total number of them. It's like upgrading your body's entire defense force. All right, so we've gone from heart health to the immune system. Now let's go somewhere you probably weren't expecting, anxiety. I mean, can an amino acid actually have an effect on stress and anxiety? Let's find out. So how would that even work, right? Well, researchers decided to look into it by measuring cortisol. That's our main stress hormone. They basically took a before picture of people's cortisol levels and then an after picture to see if anything changed. And what they found in a really high-quality study, we're talking the gold standard here, double-blinded and placebo-controlled, was pretty cool. After just 1 week of taking about 2.6 grams each of lysine and arginine, people who started out with high stress levels saw their baseline cortisol levels drop significantly. Okay, we've talked a lot about the what and the why. Now it's time to get practical. Because if you're really trying to understand lysine, you've got to know about the dosages from these studies and, just as importantly, how it plays with others. So the obvious next question is, how much are we talking about here? And the answer is, well, it really depends on what you're looking at. The dosages are all over the map. Let's just run through the numbers from the sources. For cold sores, you're looking at a range of about 1 to 3 grams a day. For that heart health protocol, the numbers get bigger, anywhere from 3 to 6 grams a day. For the anxiety study, that was a very specific 2.64 grams. But remember, that was with arginine. And for the blood pressure thing, they found it worked for people who were low on lysine, but they didn't really nail down a specific dose. And this brings us to probably the most important interaction you need to get. Think of lysine and arginine as rivals. They're always competing. Now, when it comes to cold sores, this is awesome for us. The virus needs arginine to survive, so if you load up on lysine, it basically crowds out the arginine and starves the virus. But, and this is key, the reverse is also true. If you eat a ton of arginine-rich foods, it can make your lysine supplement less effective. It's a total balancing act. Okay, so let's boil this all down. What are the big takeaways? 1, lysine is essential. You've got to get it from your diet. 2, the thing it's most famous for, fighting cold sores, is backed by really strong evidence. 3, that heart health theory is super compelling, but we've got to remember it's still a theory for now. And 4, that push and pull relationship between lysine and arginine is absolutely critical to how it all works. So that leaves us with one final thing to chew on. In our world of super complex medicines, isn't it kind of amazing to think that a simple amino acid, one of the basic building blocks of life, might hold the key to so many different aspects of our health? The science we've looked at today certainly suggests it's a question we should be asking.